afternoon. Welcome to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show. My name is Leon Jones. Today is Tuesday, November 1st, 2016. Tune in to the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show every Saturday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. Guest call-in numbers 215-383-5785. If you like my videos, please share and subscribe to the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show right here on YouTube so I can continue to give you quality information for educational purposes from a professional and mature perspective. On this channel, we don't engage in debates, controversy, or emotional issues, nor do we participate in drama and unnecessary bickering. This is a channel that's geared toward the business-minded, the professional-minded, and the ones who are looking to be educated. So please be respectful. If you have a topic or channel or business that you would like for me to put over the air, please email me at lej6521@gmail.com. If you have a comment, leave it in the comment section. But make sure that your comments are pithy. No bloviating, if you wish to opine. Now, on to this afternoon's topic. Is affirmative action still necessary to assure equal opportunity in the workplace? Again, the title of this video is Affirmative Action Still Necessary to Achieve Equal Opportunity in the workplace. Well, this issue has been ongoing since it was established back during the Nixon administration. Now, what does affirmative action do? Well, it describes policies in which historically underprivileged minorities are given preference during hiring and even admission to colleges and universities. Now, in the United States, most people associate affirmative action with the preferential of hiring regarding African Americans. However, federal affirmative action laws are also in place for women, veterans, and people with disabilities. Further, state and local governments also have enacted different affirmative action laws. However, while some argue that affirmative action is still necessary, there are others who think it isn't. In fact, since President Obama has been elected, racial tensions have worsened. Now, I'm going to be very objective about this topic because it's not an easy topic to present. So I've broken it down to what my beliefs are. Now, again, we don't engage in agreeing or disagreeing. You just let me know what you think, because remember, there's always more than one truth and a problem. The bottom line is, what is your belief? So, here is where the argument against affirmative action is. Some people who think affirmative action is no longer necessary argue that it encourages reverse racism in education, government, and in the private sector. Now, the naysayers argue that affirmative action still encourages people to look at sex, color, and race as a factor during employment or admission to college. And we did have one factor where a Caucasian lady did not get into the University of Michigan because of affirmative action that allowed a minority to step over her, even though his grades weren't as good as hers. I believe that issue was overturned by the Supreme Court. This happened 4 or 5 years ago or longer. The problem I see in affirmative action is, as a black male, and this is true, I don't benefit from it. In fact, You want to know who benefits from affirmative action more than anybody? White women do. If you look at how construction documents are drawn up, and I can tell you this, I worked for PennDOT, and I was the one sitting up there looking at the goals for minority and business participation with construction projects. And most of the projects were awarded to women business owners. It's because women. Now, everybody thought I was going to say black women. Now, black women are women, and they're black. That's true. However, the reason why white women benefit from affirmative action more than black women benefit from affirmative action, because there's more white women. Furthermore, white women are also considered a minority, and they're women. Everybody thought this was, well, black women are black and they're women, they fit 2 quotas. Affirmative action is a good system as long as it's not based on quotas. That's where the problem is with affirmative action. Individuals who are against affirmative action believe that is reverse racism. Now, utilizing this mechanism for awarding contracts, here's where the white women had to benefit. Well, when I was trying to get my minority business certification, they looked at all my paperwork. Whereas the first thing that the interviewer spotted was my resume. They wanted to make sure that I was qualified to do the work that I set out to do. Now, there were some women, they didn't check their resumes. I know, and this went on in Harrisburg because so many husbands, what they did, they would make the resume or the wife based off of what he did, and they didn't go into a thorough background check. And there were a few companies that got caught for fraud. But that wasn't the woman's fault. That was the man's fault for trying to get around the system. Now, in this society today, racism is still in operation today. It is. This is a society that is a white supremacist system. And what I mean by white supremacist, it has nothing to do with the Ku Klux Klan. What it has to do with is the positions of the powerful people, which the majority of them with the money and the power are white males. They're the ones who make the laws of the land. That being said, racism is not about color, but we think it is. Racism is a system. It was a system that was about groups, not color. We were associated with blacks by whom? White people. So what happened was, during the Jim Crow days, from the late 1800s to about 1970, there were fountains that said blacks and whites at separate fountains. Blacks had to sit in the back of the bus, whites had to sit in the front of the bus. When you look at what we call racism today, when somebody doesn't like me because I'm black, that's prejudice. That's not racism. Racism is a system that is written by the government to do this, to incapacitate a group of people as far as enjoying the economic benefits, the political benefits, and the social benefits that the powerful are enjoying. That's what racism is. Now, the affirmative action was put in place so we could not eliminate racism, so minorities, and back in the day, it was African Americans, could get a fair shot at competing in the marketplace. Now, there are some people who still believe that affirmative action is necessary, and there's some who don't. Now, the problem that we have with affirmative action, it's gone much further than African Americans. And I've always believed that each and every minority should get an equal shot. But it doesn't mean that it has to be used as a quota system. Now, some companies with the affirmative action policy, they'll hire one black, one woman, and that fulfills the affirmative action or the quota. Well, if it's being used that way, you eliminate somebody who was qualified from doing that job that maybe that minority couldn't do. But on the flip side, as there are two sides to each coin, you may bring in a qualified minority who is qualified for that position, and that counterpart who is in the powerful class may not be qualified to perform that task. So what are we going to do about the issue? Well, here's what we have to do. The laws are on the books. We have to follow them. But the question I have to ask, what about a minority business? Does that stem true for people like me who are minorities? Do I have to abide by the affirmative action policy as well? That's a good question. I'd like somebody to comment on that for me. Now, I'll do my own looking up, but that question has never been posed. Do I have to fulfill the same EEO requirements as a business that is a non-minority business? Because I am a minority, so do I have to hire a certain amount of women? Now, included in the minority hiring is sexual orientation. Well, all of this would not have gotten started if there wasn't real discrimination toward African American folk in the late 60s, and prior to that, when it came to offers of hiring and getting into college. Because if you look in the 60s, colleges like the University of Maryland, College Park, were very prejudiced. And at the University of Alabama, most African Americans didn't attend those schools. They attended HBCUs. And when they got a good ride to go play football or basketball at the bigger schools, this is when the population or the enrollment shrunk at historically black colleges and universities. Now, I still believe that the affirmative action is needed for this simple reason that the racial tensions in this country are much higher than they've ever been. And the way it looks, it just seems like we are on a cusp of a racial war. Now, as black people, would we win that racial war? Absolutely not. We wouldn't. We can't get along with each other half the time, let alone trying to compete with the power structure. We wouldn't do it. But I digress. Affirmative action was a good law when it was established by the Nixon administration in the early 70s. It's still a good law. It's not the law, it's how the law is being applied. And I always believe in hiring and admitting the person that is qualified and who has the GPA. If I have a 3.8 GPA, which is grade point average, and I'm accepted to college, it's not because I'm black. It shouldn't be. It should be because I had a good requirement. I did well in high school. And I do not want affirmative action as far as myself getting a job, because that makes it hard for me too, because I'm looked at as, okay, I got in because of color. I want to be able to utilize my skills. I don't need a free ride. But affirmative action has caused some reverse racism as well. But again, when you have a controversial issue like this, and it's not the type of controversial issue that many YouTubers are talking about. But since I do a lot of business formats, deal with HR, this issue must be part of hiring issues and business issues, because you need to know this information so you don't get sued. But going back to affirmative action, is it still necessary? From my personal opinion, yes, it's still necessary. From an objective opinion, that just depends on the company culture. But at the end of the day, it's still in effect. We have to abide by it. And it's always going to be there. There's nothing we can do about it. Is the law a good law? It's still a good law because, again, you have minorities who are disadvantaged. This is why they have different programs. And this is where government has stepped in to try to allow minorities and women to compete. But if you really look at the amount of money set aside for minority businesses, it's about 30%, which is a good chunk of money. But if we're going to compete in a workplace, we shouldn't have to worry about discrimination. And this is why the law is there, regardless of whether I like it or I don't. It's good to have some measure in place. Now, it's not necessarily the law, it's the people. Because you have numerous individuals who are still bigoted out here. That's right, they're very bigoted. You're not going to legislate stupid or ignorance. But what you can legislate is how companies are utilizing the affirmative action policy by having some government oversight and some fines or lawsuits. Because this is truly an American melting pot. And I've always been told that America is a melting pot. Oh, it is as far as people are concerned. But if you look at it, wages still aren't fair in this country. But I never believed in equality because it doesn't exist. I believe in fairness. Give me an equal opportunity and let the outcome be mine. Because at the end of the day, I am the one who has to look at the result of my actions. I'm not a big fan of government stepping in the way of my economic success. But what I am a proponent of is making sure that there is inclusion for each and every one of us. Again, if I gave everybody $10 million, I guarantee the mindset of some people is going to be gone in a day. But I digress. Getting back to affirmative action. Affirmative action is still necessary, and it just depends on who you're working for and also what part of the country you live in. Because you have areas that aren't used to seeing African Americans and some areas that aren't used to seeing Caucasians. But nevertheless, without the law in place, I don't think a lot of African Americans would be successful. Because if you look at it, most of us have been successful in one industry, and that's entertainment. And this is why we're looked at as a joke. But when it comes to being professional, I'm talking about doctors, engineers, lawyers, Although you do have a lot of black lawyers, but in the engineering profession, it's less than 1% of us who are engineers and who are managing projects. I'll tell you that right now. I was the only African American working at PennDOT, and I went through hell. I was happy to get out of there. But at the end of the day, you have to be the judge on the affirmative action policy. So tell me what you think. Leave a comment in my comment section. Now, again, just make sure your comment sticks to the topic and it's intelligent, because this is not an issue that is up for debate. Just want to see what you think, because none of us are perfect, because there are going to be some issues that I put in place that you don't know about, and vice versa. And that's this commentary for this edition of the 401 Talk Zone radio show. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. Remember, please be gentle and respectful with each other, and have a wonderful and blessed afternoon.